Hello, and welcome to my presentation on mobile medical apps. Hopefully you'll find this interesting. Let's get started. If you go to the iTunes or Google App Store, there's already hundreds of thousands of apps that are used for wellness or monitoring of medical conditions. And this slide I like to call "Everybody Hates to Go to the Doctor." So it pretty much highlights that this is going to be a preferred trend in the future. 80% of consumers said that they find wearable devices has a huge potential in making healthcare convenient. And 70% of providers said that they have seen tangible change in patient care domain, which can be attributed to the mobile health infrastructure. 71% of patients said that they would prefer if their doctors used the mobile app. 71% of physicians have adopted electronic health record systems. 65% of patients said that security is critical and for convenient access for results and diagnosis. And soon 80% of doctors' tasks like measuring blood pressure, monitoring glucose can be handled by technology. And 70% of patients are extremely comfortable with having a conversation with their healthcare providers over video, email, or text. And these trends are only going to increase with the tech-savvy generation of millennials and the generation after them, yet to be named. So pretty much doctors and patients alike are pretty open to this technology. So the question is how to get this technology on market and how to do it correctly. What is a mobile medical device? First off, they must meet the definition of a medical device, be used for the express purpose of diagnosing, preventing, or treating disease, and this is based off of labeling and intended use, or act as an accessory to a regulated medical device, or transform a mobile platform into a regulated medical device. In the FDA's guidance document from 2015, which I encourage everyone to read, the FDA has decided that they'll have enforcement discretion on many apps which they meet the definition of a medical device, but they consider poses little risk to the patient. These kind of apps help patients and users self-manage their disease or condition without providing specific treatment suggestions, or provide patients with simple tools to organize and track their health information, provide easy access to the information related to health conditions or treatments, help patients document, show, or communicate potential medical conditions to healthcare providers, automate simple tasks for healthcare providers, or enable patients or providers to interact with personal health records or electronic health record systems. So this is a pretty broad category, and in my paper I put in more examples of what these could be. And it is key for people when they manufacture these devices to know early on if they're going to fall into this category or a category that will have enforcement. Now, outside of enforcement discretion for FDA and wellness devices, there are many different ways that a mobile platform can become a regulated mobile medical device. Some examples are controlling a medical device, such as insulin pump, control blood pressure cuff, or a drug delivery system, by using attachments, display screens, or sensors, or by including functionalities similar to those of a currently regulated medical device. Examples can be attachment of a blood glucose strip reader to a mobile platform to function as a glucose meter, attachment of an ECG electrodes to a mobile platform to measure, store, and display the signals, an app that uses the built-in accelerometer of a mobile platform to collect motion information for monitoring sleep apnea, or a mobile app that uses sensors on a mobile platform for creating an electronic stethoscope function. These are all different ways that you can use additional functionalities of a mobile platform to become a regulated device. The next category of ways that mobile platforms can become a regulated MMA, besides attachments, is that it is using the built-in features to become a regulated device. Examples are app that uses a sensor or electrode attached to the mobile platform, or tools within the mobile platform itself, such as microphone and speaker. They amplify and project sounds associated with the heart, arteries, and veins. This would be similar to a stethoscope, or mobile apps that use tools within the mobile platform, such as the speaker, to do controlled levels of test tones and signals to use in conducting diagnostic hearing evaluations, such as an audiometer, or mobile apps uses a sensor attached to the mobile platform or tools within the platform itself to measure the physiological parameters such as movement to check for sleep apnea. Mobile apps that use an attachment to the platform, such as the light source or laser for treating acne, reduce wrinkles, or remove hair. Or mobile apps that are intended to display images for diagnostic review may be regulated as picture archiving and communication systems. European regulations are pretty close to the FDA regulations, and they apply if the intended use is for disease detection, treatment, or prevention, and manufacturers have to follow the MDD. And they also require CE mark prior to marketing in the EU. There is a new rule called Rule 11, which means that classification is not only, it's based on both purpose and risk assessment. The impact of this regulation is that devices previously classified as Class 1, such as monitoring blood pressure, could be up-classified to a higher category, such as 2B, because of the potential risk of what they are monitoring. This could have a big impact for several manufacturers where they have to not only consider their labeled intended use, but the disease state and any potential risks that come from this. So this could add additional regulatory burdens that have to be accounted for in design and development and marketing. In addition to the myriad of all the other regulations that apply, there's some additional features that apply just to MMAs. One of these is the Health Insurance Privacy Protection Act, otherwise known as HIPAA. This act protects the privacy and security of health information based off of patients and requires certain entities to provide notifications of potential health information breaches. And there's also the FTC Act, which prohibits false and deceptive practices and false advertising, which means you need solid scientific data to back up your intended uses. Now, the problem is, what does everybody consider to be solid scientific data? Is this validation? Is this verification? Is this clinical studies? This pretty much has to come to the expert of the subject matter experts and the regulatory consultants to determine what is the proper amount of data. Now, if you're a regulated app, this would go as part of your filing for the 510K or PMA. But if you consider that you're under the enforcement discretion or a wellness device, your solid scientific data would not be part of a filing, it would be part of a letter to file. So just like our previous discussions we've had on this topic, each manufacturer and team is going to have to decide what is the quality of data and how they're going to record and file that in case of a potential audit. An additional feature on top of these is cybersecurity. You need a risk assessment to account for security breaches, which are becoming more and more prevalent, to prevent unintended use and harm and/or the loss of data. Let's say that this is a very rare event or very remote event that somebody would externally hack into a mobile platform and take control of a device functionality. But nevertheless, this still has to be accounted for and assessed properly, and all the mitigations have to be in place. Thankfully for the people that wanted to have MMAs, there are many examples of clear devices already available on the FDA website, and they provide all of the manufacturers that are already cleared, and they list the filing and what their classification was. So this could be very helpful if somebody has a similar device, if they want to see where they land. I like to call this slide the bold and the foolish. These are good, bad examples of companies that have gone afoul of the law because they haven't followed the guidance properly, or they're unaware, or they just strategically made bad decisions. So back in 2011, FTC settled with the marketers of the Acne app, which was an old mobile app that was marketed for treating acne by emitting colored lights from smartphones. The settlements barred the marketers from making acne treatment claims about their apps or any other devices in the absence of substantiating scientific evidence. In 2015, FTC barred MelApp and Mole Detective mobile apps for making any representation that the apps could detect or diagnose melanoma, identify risk factors of melanoma, or increase users' chances of detecting melanoma in its early stages in the absence of substantiating scientific evidence. In 2015, FTC settled with the developer of Ultim Eyes, which was marketed as scientifically shown to improve vision. The company agreed to pay a $150,000 fine and to stop making the vision improvement claims. So pretty much every one of these manufacturers of MMAs made the bold and foolish decision to market the app as being used to diagnose, treat, or prevent disease, but they didn't have the data to back it up. So FTC caught up with them and forced them to reverse course and take it off market or change their claims. So do not be bold and foolish and make the right decisions up front. I'm now going to talk about the wellness exemption for unregulated wellness devices. Is it the same or different for MMAs? I pretty much am going to say that it's the same, even though they're separate guidance documents released at different times. And to start with, I'm going to shamelessly use Dr. Drew's equation because I think it's pretty good. And the way to get wellness exemption is through labeling plus technology plus risk. And this pretty much applies for MMAs too. If you do not want to become a regulated device and submit a 510K or PMA, you want to have weak medical claims, which is strong language on intended use that it's not for medical purposes of diagnosing or preventing or treating. It's low risk to the patient, and it's using well-accepted technology. If you have all of these, you're probably on the right path to become unregulated. And the way to go about this is documenting through a letter to file and backing up with sound data, just in case the FDA or FTC is ever going to question or look for how you back up what you say and what your claims are. Now, strategically, it's probably better to go this route first and do label extensions later on, unless you choose right from the jump that you want to become regulated and you have all of the data to back up and submit the filing with your 510K or PMA. You don't want to make the wrong decision and get enforcement action and then have to backtrack. You could face severe fines and it could be a huge mistake for your company. This is a flowchart for general wellness exemption, but the same rules pretty much apply to mobile medical apps. The first thing is, does the product make a claim related to general health? If the answer is no, then you kind of skip ahead and you say it's outside of the scope of regulation. However, if you do make a claim, does it talk about a specific condition? Yes or no? If the answer is no, you can also skip ahead and then you go straight to the risk. If it does make a claim, is the disease or condition well understood? Is the claim language soft? Now this is the key point. This gets to promising about what your app or device can actually do. Does it say that it's helping with monitoring and measuring, or does it say and make claims around actually diagnosing, preventing, or treating? This will determine if it falls under wellness or if it gets into the regulated category. So basically, the important thing to take away from this is everything around whether or not your device could be regulated or fall into the wellness or exemption category has to go with what is your labeled intended use, what is the risk, what is the technology, and how do you present it. So let's summarize and recap kind of what I went through very quickly. You want to decide early on if you want to market a regulated device or a wellness device. And if you have an MMA, you have to build in cybersecurity and account for it in your risk assessment. And you design your app so that if it does fail, or if it's breached or lose critical patient information, it's all properly mitigated. Be truthful in your advertising. The intended use is key. Disclose limitations where they're readily available, which means they can't be buried underneath a bunch of mumbo jumbo, hidden in links, or buried behind other things that people won't see. It has to be upfront and everybody has easy access and they're aware of what your app is intended to do or not do. You have valid and sound scientific proof to back up everything that is claimed or implied. And I discussed what valid and sound scientific means, and this is really critical, and this is where regulatory professionals could give a lot of guidance, because if the FDA or FTC finds this lacking, you're going to get in trouble. And communicate with FDA if you're unsure, or you can go to the website for several examples. There's already hundreds of approved devices, so it's less likely you're going to have to go de novo route, and you can use traditional. Of course, you can always strategically force it to go the de novo route if you consider your technology and what you're doing to truly be novel and you want to force out competition. Account for use and risk when considering classification, especially abroad in the EU. And I've talked multiple times about guidance, but in my opinion, guidance is pretty much treated like the law. The FDA has the discretion to decide that you are illegally selling a medical device at any moment, and FTC can hit you with penalties for false and misleading claims. So make good decisions, make them early on, and try not to make the mistakes that other manufacturers have fallen into.